Hello and welcome to Talks with E on this Tuesday. From wherever you're tuning in from, drop a hello, drop a comment, let me know how you heard about today's talk session. So how have you been? Our last conversation series on Let's Talk Racism wrapped up approximately a week ago, and hopefully you have been emulating those conversations, putting to practice some of those things that we discussed, from having open conversation, candid conversations, regardless of how uncomfortable they are, being willing to start that conversation with a hello. And today we pick right back up with another talk series on a topic we all know, a topic where we actually do this each and every day, which is talk, communicate, have a conversation. Specifically, this series will be focusing on conversations across generations, right? So why, Elizabeth, do you feel the need to have a conversation on this topic? We've been doing this all our lives, from the moment we breathe our first breath to now. Well, Dan Oswald says this: conversations must be hot, H-O-T. Honest, open, two-way, right? So today and through this series, as we talk about this, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. Are your conversations honest, open, and two-way? Do you have conversations with individuals where they are able to express themselves, where you are able to express your true feelings in an honest manner, in a manner where you can be open, in a manner where you can expect them to respond to you and it is okay regardless of what they say to you, in a respectful manner? Think about conversations across generations, talking to somebody that is older or younger than you. How do those conversations go? Are they honest? Are they open? Are they two-way? And what happens when our conversations are not hot? What happens when our conversations, we're not able to communicate effectively with other people? We get a disconnect. And today we live in a society that is beautifully diverse. People from all races, all ages, all backgrounds, tall, white, black, brown, African, American, Portuguese, Caribbean, all people, all races, all tribes, all languages, all ages. And the challenge and the beauty is to now communicate effectively with each other. So the question for you as we get started is, what is one setting you feel your conversations are effective? And a setting where you feel your conversations are not so effective, they're not hot, right? Is it in the workplace? Conversations in the workplace, they're good. I can talk to my coworkers, no problem, it's good. We understand each other, we're able to work with each other. When I get home, it's a completely different ball game, completely different song. Or maybe you say, I'm able to communicate with the people I live with beautifully, perfectly, but at work, nah brah, it ain't working. So what setting, where are these conversations hot or cold? And you may not want to maybe say this, but as we talk, as we discuss, ask yourself why. So Elizabeth, yes, conversations are important. Yes, we have a diverse community, specifically a diverse generational community. Right now, for the first time, don't quote me on what year, but we now have 5 different generations working together. Like if I was to walk into my workplace right now, I have 5 generations, 5 different types of people that I can interact with today. Will my communication be different? Absolutely. Will there be challenges with communication? Absolutely. But that does not mean we cease communicating. It simply means we learn how to communicate. And that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. That's why Talks with E is here, so that we can facilitate these conversations. So why is communication important? Think about how you built your current, past relationship with your significant other, with your children, with your peers, with your co-workers, with other people. You communicated. It's a way to understand one another better. It's a way to build and maintain relationships. This is how information, history, values are passed down from one generation to another. Think about the dining table. When on a family reunion where you're sitting with your uncles, your aunts, your father, your brothers, your sisters, and the patriarch or the matriarch is telling a story about how things were back then. For some of you, you may say, oh my gosh, those are the most boring conversations. But for me, those are the best conversations. We laugh, we cry, we understand, we learn, and we have a good time. Conversations. Today, in our homes, in our work, your place of worship, where you have social interactions with other people, you meet people from all different backgrounds. But this series, we're talking on individuals now from different generations, because that is the reality of where we are today. Our homes, our everyday life, is filled with communicating with people. Me communicating with my parents, communicating with my elders, with my co-workers, with my boss, with my teacher. All this communication, regardless of the purpose, regardless of who it's with, has to be effective. So that way information can be shared, right? This is how we assure that the success of tomorrow is there. The vehicle that allows us to do this is communication. And then we fuel that vehicle with love, with respect, with understanding, so we can be able to build bridges across and within generations and backgrounds and races. So today we lay the foundation. And the next 3 weeks, next week, the week after, and the week after, we will invite diverse members of our community to join us to represent the different generations we interact with in society. And rather than take the time to define what communication is, to define what are the different generations, I want to do that right now for maybe the next 15, 20, 30 minutes, so that our next sessions are focused on listening, learning, connecting, engaging with our panelists to talk about communication, their styles, their preferences, challenges, benefits of it across generations. So what is communication, right? I mean, what am I doing right now? I am exchanging information or news with you. Elizabeth, this is a one-way conversation. Well, I'm asking you to give me feedback. What is a hot conversation? What setting do your hot conversations happen? Remember, hot, honest, open, two-way. What keeps these conversations from being hot? What makes these conversations cold? I'm asking you that to get your feedback. So please communicate with me. Exchange information, ideas, and news. So communication is a means of sending and receiving information. If I'm talking with my parent, maybe they are giving me information, teaching me something. So they are the sender. I am the recipient of that lesson. But for information to come from sender to recipient, there's a process there, right? And we'll get into that. But so communication is a way of sending and receiving information, where there is an exchange of this information, So there's an interaction process, right? So what are the different types of communication? Because we talk without speaking with our mouth. We can talk just with a look. I have been raised by African parents, and actually all parents are able to communicate with just a look across that aisle, that nose. It tells you so many things. Other people may not even notice that there was an exchange of information. So communication types. There's verbal, which is what we're doing right here, use of language to transfer information through speaking or sign language. There's nonverbal, use of body language, gestures, facial expressions to convey information. Now, this exchange can be intentional or non-intentional. What is an example of a nonverbal communication? My mother communicating with me across the church aisle when I am misbehaving, and she tells me, as soon as we get home, you are going to get it. She did not open her mouth. She just gave me one look that said it all. Or rolling your eyes at someone. Wow, just the thought of doing that. Okay? Rolling your eyes at something somebody said. Shrugging your shoulders. I even hesitate. I get PTSD when I think about that, because there was a time I got in some serious trouble when I shrugged. But in my defense, I did not mean, it was not intentional. It was unintentional, and it was perceived as being disrespectful, and I understand why. But honest to goodness, guys, it was not a shrug like, I don't care what you're saying, whatever. But from the moment it happened to the time I was trying to explain myself, yeah, we weren't having it. My father was not having it. We were going to fix that problem, okay? So don't shrug your shoulders. Oh my goodness, run and never return. Communication can be written. Communicating through writing. When you put a Facebook status. A few hours ago when I wrote to you that I'll be going live to talk about communication. Communicating through writing. So these 3 types of communication styles are good to know, because depending on the communication type, it determines what is appropriate. If you're wanting to transfer, maybe what you're saying, there is an emotion or a feeling that goes with it, or even there's some nonverbal cues that you put out, it may not be the best thing to text, right? Who here has said something over text and it was misconstrued as something very bad? You had no intention. You were not yelling, you were not being disrespectful, you were not being harsh, but the way it was read, the way it was communicated, the LOLs, the feelings, the humor of that, maybe sarcasm, was just not received by the recipient. So, there are times and places for certain communication styles. My mother, when she sees me misbehaving, I've outgrown of the misbehaving stage, okay? But when she saw me talking, because I was always a talker, when in school and we had the prefect, I was the first noisemaker. My name, Beth. I used to go by Beth when I was young. Beth was the first name on the noisemakers list. I just didn't understand. I had something to say. I was trying to express myself, yo. Come on now. But neither here nor there, the prefect did not understand that. Maybe I should have written that note to my desk partner rather than speak it, because at that time we were supposed to be silent. So depending on the type of communication determines the channel, right? If it's something that may be really mistaken or misunderstood, it may be better to say it rather than write it, because the emotions or the feelings or the humor or whatever it is you're wanting to transfer may not be transferred. So we've talked about what communication is, the exchanging of information. Communication has to be hot, H-O-T, honest, open, two-way. This is a two-way street. None of those random Dallas one-way streets that come up any and everywhere in Fort Worth and Dallas all the time. We want two-way streets, so that if I make a mistake and I was supposed to turn on Main Street, but I didn't understand the GPS in terms of in 400 feet, or if I'm in Kenya, we use a different system, I may make a mistake, so I need to U-turn. But if I'm on a one-way street, that's not going to happen. Think about the same thing with communications. There's sometimes maybe how you say something and you're like, let me come right back, retry that again, and give that information back to you. Honest, open, two-way. So, we've talked about what communication is: exchanging ideas, exchanging information. There's a process. 3 things are needed for communication to happen: a sender, a message, and a recipient. A sender, me, I am giving you a message. I am encoding, I am writing and giving this information in a way that when I send it to you and I transmit it to you through the communication channel, Facebook, YouTube, writing, email, conversation, FaceTime, when I transmit that to you, you, the recipient, are able to receive it, decode it, so you can understand what I'm trying to say. Basically, you can pick up what I'm dropping. You can be on the same wavelength as me. We can talk in the same way so you can understand what I'm saying and I can understand. If you understand, it's a process. It's a process. It's a continual process, right? Because if I give information in a way that you maybe don't understand and you tell me, can you rephrase that? That's called clarification. And so I say, okay, let me clarify, or let me give more information. And you say, okay, got it, done. Next topic, next subject, continue. So sometimes it takes a few tries, okay? If you're a parent on here, how many times does it take for your child to figure out what you're saying, even if you've been saying multiple times? Or, child, how many times do you have to say, Mom, I really want to, please can I? You just keep saying it in different ways, in different times. They try to understand, why is this important? You tell them that's not sufficient. You tell it again. And then finally you say, okay, we can work something out. So communication is a process. There's an exchange of information, exchange of a message, ideas, information, a message, and the sender encodes that information in a way that I think you can understand. And if I leave it there, one, did you receive it? Did you get it? Because if you didn't, I need to follow up, right? But if you did, I got it, Elizabeth. I understand. This is what you're saying. You may clarify, you may ask follow-up questions. But at the end of the day, what we want is mutual understanding, right? Where the message has been understood by the recipient because the right channel was used. Sometimes it's easier to call than to text. My brother is a perfect example. He goes, just call me. What we're saying in 20 minutes text could have been done in a 5-second phone call. But I'm the texter. I'll send it because I'm not sure. Maybe you're at work. Maybe you're in a meeting. Maybe you're in a place you can't talk. So let me just send it. Or it's not really something that needs a whole conversation. Hello? Hey, how are you? Good. Everything good? Yep. So I was thinking, instead, I can text, hey, I was thinking, and I send it to them. That's me. But somebody else may want to, okay, what are you saying? I didn't understand this. So was the right channel used? Was the message received? First of all, did it show up? Did the person get it? Did the person receive that text, that phone call? Did they know that they were being talked to, XYZ? And was it understood? What you said, was it said in a way that they understood, right? And so those are things that determine whether the goal has been reached. Remember, the desired goal of communication is mutual understanding. If you're having a disagreement with somebody, are you able to talk in a way that they understand where you're coming from, why this is an issue or a concern, and they also do the same, and y'all come to some agreement on how you're going to tackle that situation? Is it an argument? I called you, you didn't pick up. I said this, you said that, they said, you said, we said, they all said that you said, and I don't appreciate it. What did I say? What do you think I meant? What do you think I said? Because when we have that conversation, you may find out, nope, that's not what I said. That's definitely not what I meant. The intent of my message was XYZ. So misunderstandings happen. And the goal of communication is mutual understanding. That when a message is sent, the receiver of the message understands it. Is it a message about dating? Is it a message? Are we in a relationship? Listen, we gotta know, because I need to know where you and I stand. So are we talking, dating? Where are we going? Are we in agreement? Are we working on this group project together? Do you get it? Do I get it? Do you understand what the teacher wants us to do? You're gonna do part A, I'm gonna do part B, and then we're gonna do part C together. You need to make sure that there is understanding in whatever conversation you're having. Because if not, the outcomes of misunderstanding is, first of all, if it's a group project, both of y'all are going to get a really bad grade. If it's a relationship, there are going to be misplaced expectations, right? Whether it's a friendship, a significant other where you're dating, or if it's a platonic relationship with your peers, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is. If there is misunderstanding in communication, there will be some consequences, and sometimes they get a little messy. Misunderstandings between a parent and a child, a husband and a wife, a pastor, and their church member, a boss and their employees versus employees. We want communication to be effective, to be hot, honest, open, two-way. If you have a problem, you're able to be in a space where you can navigate that problem. So I ask you again, how are your relationships? Whether it is your perfect or your best relationship or your worst difficult relationship, how is communication happening between those two? And how maybe have there been misunderstandings? Remember, this talk series is about conversations across generations. So this may be a conversation between a parent and a child, a coworker and their other coworker, an employee and an employer, a pastor and his congregation. Peers can be of different age brackets, right? Because I have friends that are in older age brackets than myself, and sometimes there is misunderstandings. So, conversations, communication, transfer of information, news, ideas. It's an exchange. The goal is we want communications to be hot, honest, open, two-way, transactional, right? So, what are some barriers? And there are many. There are many barriers to communication. But for the sake of this conversation and this series, I'm going to highlight a few, right? Some of these could be appropriateness of the communication channel. Is the communication method you're using the most appropriate? Text versus face-to-face conversation. An email versus a call, right? Twitter, Facebook, letters. We have people that talk how they tweet. 140 characters, that's it. You will not get any more from them. Well, people like me, Twitter sometimes is very inhibitive because I am a talker. So 140 characters are a little bit too much, a little bit too little. Can you make that 280? But for some people, it's just right, okay? And so Twitter works for them, while for some it's Facebook or Snapchat or TikTok. I mean, everybody is on TikTok expressing themselves in other ways. So appropriateness of communication. Setting. Is this a conversation that really needs to happen in person or in private? I've been guilty of having private conversations in public. They're not inappropriate conversations, but maybe the topic, the issue was not something I needed to be out at Walmart hashing it out with my sister, with my parent, or with somebody else. It needed to be in a safe space, closed setting where we talked, because maybe what we were talking about was a sensitive topic or XYZ. So ask yourself that. Use of jargon, overcomplicated, unfamiliar terms. I'm also guilty of this. Man, I love the English language and the English dictionary. I am a true nerd. I will use quintessential instead of perfect example. Okay? It's just so pretty. It sounds so good. But for some people, that may be a little too much, right? Or maybe I'll use medical jargon, or I'll use research jargon that other people don't understand. Does that mean they're not smart? Absolutely not. But if your jargon is, if you're in the medical field and you go into the geography field, there'll be some terms that you've never heard of or you don't understand. And there needs to be a way to communicate across disciplines, right? A public health person needs to be able to communicate with a business person. An anthropologist, my anthropologist, you guys, needs to communicate with a historian, and vice versa. So, use of jargon, emotional barriers or taboos. These are conversations we don't talk about. What are some conversations you don't talk about? Mental health, religion, politics, sex, sexual orientation, gender orientation, slavery, racism, systemic racism, other injustices, other things that have happened in the past, emotional barriers or taboos. Maybe some people have a difficulty expressing their emotions. And there may be some topics that are just off limits. We don't talk about mental illnesses. We don't even talk about that topic at all. But guys, we have to have conversations. If it affects us or those around us, it is valid and important to have conversations. We need to have conversations about race. We just finished a Let's Talk Racism series. Let me know how you liked that. How are those conversations? Are you having those uncomfortable conversations with people from different races? If you have black friends, white friends, right? If you have friends that are from a different part of the world than you are you having conversations about that, right? Or are you holding that as taboo? No, we don't talk race. We don't talk about being racist. We don't talk about any of that. We don't talk about gender violence, domestic violence, divorce. We don't talk about depression. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about religion. My goodness, if we never talk about it, what will we talk about? Because we need to have those conversations. So do not shy away from conversations that make you uncomfortable. Those are actually the conversations we need to have. If race makes you uncomfortable, find somebody you can talk about it in a safe space until you are uncomfortable. And maybe you may never become comfortable. And that is okay. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be real. Communication has to be hot, honest, open, two-way. Allow yourself to be honest and say, that conversation really makes me uncomfortable. This topic really makes me uncertain. That's okay. Put yourself around people that are able to allow you to be your authentic self, whether that is vulnerable or not, whether that is uncertain, uncomfortable, scared. Be it, do it, say it. Okay? So, some other things, differences in perceptions and viewpoints. My perception of what good communication is may not be your perception of what good communication is. A disagreement to you is a fight, and it's inappropriate. Yelling to you may be this. Yelling to me is raised voice in a higher octave than your normal tone, yelling at the top of your lungs. To me, that's yelling. But to somebody else, they may say, why are you yelling? Chill. I'm like, I am as chill as a glass of McAllister sweet tea on a summer day. I am chill. Just because I'm disagreeing with you and I'm talking with passion does not mean I'm yelling or I'm angry. It just means that the conversation, the topic is one that really gets me going. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So perceptions, viewpoints, what is appropriate? We can have those conversations. Well, when can we have those conversations? And my challenge, off notes right now, my challenge to all of us, if you are a parent and you have not had certain conversations with your child, it's time to have certain conversations with your child. If you are a child and you have not had certain conversations with your parents, I challenge you to have conversations with your parents. Because if it is important to you, be honest, be open, and have those two-way conversations. If it is important to becoming your authentic self, if it is an issue you find important, if it is a problem you are dealing with, if it is a situation you really want to tackle, be open, be honest, and have two-way conversations about it. Pick the right channel. Make sure that your nonverbal cues don't unintentionally communicate something that you did not want. So check your motive, check your heart, right? And create those spaces. That's off topic, but I hope it resonates with you. Let me know in the comments. So, differences in perceptions, and viewpoints. Cultural differences, anybody? Culture. Group of people that share certain characteristics. This could be gender, age, religion, ethnicity, background, language, anything that connects a group of people with similar characteristics. Okay, cultural differences. Your culture, my culture, informs what is perceived as a social norm. Personal space, you know that personal space? If you come this close to me, that's a little close. But for some people, even this is a little close, or even this is a little close. Well, how am I going to hear you if you're a mile away, right? So personal space, right? What is respectful? An individual may perceive you responding, asking for clarification, acknowledging you've received a message as talking back. You know, talking back. Don't talk back to me. I wasn't talking back to you. I was just asking a question because I really want to understand where you're coming from. And I want you to understand where I'm coming from. So parents. When you talk to your child and they give you information, remember, honest, open, two-way. You send a message, they receive it, they acknowledge and confirm it. Is that talking back? Or is that clarifying? Now, children, there's a way to clarify, okay, that is respectful. We need to respect each other, regardless of age, regardless of anything. If I'm talking to a 2-year-old, I need to show them respect simply because they're a human being, right? An underlying theme in Talks with E conversation is, let us respect and appreciate people because they are people. So it does not matter their race, their gender, their beliefs, their values, their backgrounds, their age, their intellectual capacity, their emotional capacity. Respect people. Give respect regardless of whether you get it, but let us give it and receive it right back. So, talking back. Is it talking back? Right? Depending on the culture you're from, a young person talking back, clarifying, asking a question, repeating what was said is considered talking back, which is a bad thing. I challenge all of us to ask ourselves, am I talking back disrespectfully or am I talking back to get information? Okay? Conversation across different ages. Who should talk? Who should listen? Baby, whoa. There are times I've been in conversations where, it's supposed to be a two-way conversation, but my only communication that I need to transmit to the sender is and just silence and focused attention, like transmit that I'm really tuned in, really focused to what you're saying. That is the only expectations they have. And if I do anything outside of that, it's disrespectful. So, conversation across different ages. Who should talk? Who should listen? Communication is an exchange of ideas and information. The sender is not always the sender. They send, somebody receives, you send back, you receive, you send back. It is a process. It's an exchange. It's an interaction. You're transmitting something, right? So, differences in how disagreements should be handled. Some people yell, go from 0 to 100. That's me sometimes. And that's how I handle them. Some people are like, you raise your voice, I'm out, I'm done. It ceases to be a conversation and it begins to just now be noise, right? So expectations, perceptions, language differences. Now it may not be I'm speaking English and you speak Igbo or you speak Spanish or you speak Swahili. It could be we're speaking English, but we are on different wavelengths. like the jargon that I'm using, what I hear the words. I understand the English, but I don't understand what I'm supposed to get from that. Case in point, she ripped my edges. I mean, she came out here and she laid them, she gave it to me real, gave it to me good, just ripped my edges. I am shook. Now, for somebody that has no idea that terminology, they say, what? They ripped out your hair? They ripped out your edges? And they shook you too? What do you mean they shook you? I'm shook. I'm shooketh. Who did it? Why? But for a younger person, that really just means that that person, wow, just said it in a way that just resonated. It hit them where they needed to be hit. It touched their heart and their mind, their soul, their body, everything, and they understood it. And it completely revolutionized or completely changed how they perceived something or how they thought of something. Well, it was just fabulous. Now, did you get that out of that? It's English. My edges ripped, shooketh. Yes, it's English. Edges ripped, shooketh. Shooketh means you shake something. But shooketh to me means just wow, shooketh, shooketh. But to somebody like my father, they may be like, that was so disrespectful. Why would they do that? Now, my dad's a cool guy. He's a cool dude. And you'll get to meet him in one of these panel sessions because he works with young people. He works with different generations. So he has some terms. He's told me one time, Elizabeth, stay on your lane. I'm like, oh, stay on my lane? What do you mean? Okay, Dad. Okay, I hear you. Stay on your lane. Mind your business. Do you. Handle yours. Quit coming into my lane and telling me how to do, how to be. Stay in your lane. Now, if I would have told my grandmother that, maybe she would have perceived, I'm not driving though. But what do you mean stay in your lane? So language differences is not just language as in Spanish, English. It could even be cultural language types stuff. Last one is expectations and prejudices. You may be a baby boomer and just think that millennials are disrespectful, entitled, talk too much about everything, share and air their dirty laundry to everybody when it should be those conversations are conversations for the house and not for everybody. A millennial may say, listen, if it's a problem, I'm going to let you know it's a problem. If I'm having a mental situation, you won't know I'm going to have a mental situation. If I feel disrespected, you won't know I'm feeling disrespected. Or if I like that, I'm going to acknowledge and affirm that. So expectations. Now be very careful because prejudices, these stereotypes, lead to assumptions and jumping to conclusions. Oh, they don't care about that. You know them. That young generation don't care about anything. Yeah, you young generation, you always want to talk back to people. You never listen. You don't even care about this. All you care is about yourself. Who said that? Who said that? Is that really accurate? Stereotypes, overgeneralization of a community, of a people. Stereotypes, all black people are criminals. If a black man comes in there with a hoodie, he's a gangster and he's up to no good. Who said that? Maybe it's cold. He was running. He was minding his own business, staying on his lane. But you decided that, you know what, that don't look right. Let me call the cops on that. Stereotypes. These are not just things that are limited to race, religion. Oh, you know those Pentecostals. Oh, you know those Muslims. Oh, you know those Baptists. Oh, you know those. Let's be very careful with these assumptions and stereotypes because they lead to conclusions that become a barrier to communication. So now we've talked about what communication is. The ingredients for good communication, hot. Right? We'll dig deeper into that with every session that we have. But now here's the reality that we're in as I wrap up. We live in a multi-generation setting. And there are differences between generations in preference of communication channel. You may prefer an email, shoot me a text, call it a day. You may prefer a phone call or a face-to-face conversation. I say, nah, we're going to catch each other on Zoom. We're going to see each other on FaceTime, and that's where it's at 11 p.m. at night. What? Okay? Emotional barriers and taboos. Generations, different generations. We have different ways of expressing ourselves. Taboos about what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, or every conversation is at the table. No matter the topic, we're going to talk about it. Different perceptions and viewpoints, social norms, expectations in interacting with others. If I'm an older person, I may say, you know what, when I'm talking to a younger person, I'm expecting some respect. What is respect? I'm expecting them to listen. Is that all? Is all you need for me to listen, or are you wanting me to also respond and have an actual conversation? Okay? So we live in a multi-generational setting. Our homes are multi-generational. Parents, how are your conversations with your children? Are those conversations hot? Like truly, truly hot? Honest, open, transactional? Are you able to talk to them? Maybe they're dating. Are you able to talk about your dating life, your experiences, the lessons that you learned, the things that you went through, so that it can be a learning moment, a passing of information, of values, ideas? Or are they going to be like, listen, I didn't date until I met your father. I didn't date until I met your mother. She was the first woman I acknowledged as a woman. He was the first man I acknowledged as a man. And from there, it was straight to the church, and the rest is history. But my aunties and uncles say something different, right? So, open, honest, transactional. A generation is a birth cohort, born and raised around the same time. They possess similar preferences, characteristics, and values over a lifetime. So my father is of the baby boomer generation. I am a millennial, a true millennial. So how we interact, there may be some clashes in between. But does that mean we're done? That's it? No, it means we just got to work a little harder, right? So currently, baby boomers, millennials, Gen X comprise the majority of the workforce, and Gen Y and Z as well, right? So what generation are you in? And what is the biggest challenge you have in conversing with somebody of a different generation? Are you a baby boomer? How do you communicate with the Gen Z? Are you a Gen Z? How do you communicate with millennials? Right? Baby boomers were born between 1946 to 64. Gen X, 1965 to 80. Gen Y, 1981 to 1996. Millennials in the house right here, right? Gen Z, the digital age, were born 1996 onward, right? So, who are they? Some stereotypes: baby boomers, time-stressed. Okay, Gen Z, skeptical, self-reliant. Millennials, socially conscious, cynical, entitled. 1996 people and onward, progressive, impulsive. Whether these stereotypes are accurate or not, they don't represent maybe me. I'm not narcissistic. I don't feel like I'm entitled or cynical. It may be perceived that way based on your definition of that. But that may not be who I am. So if you're talking to me, a millennial, and you already assume, oh, you're not going to listen to me because all you ever think about is what you want to say, what you feel, nobody else. Who said that? So we want to have effective communication, which is minimizing misunderstanding and barriers, minimizing emotional responses or stereotypes about person, refusing to make assumptions about generation, because that can be a barrier to communication. Different cultural languages. I talked about talking English, but my version and yours is completely different. While you'll often hear stereotypes about all generations, both good and bad, here's the reality. Members of each generation bring unique pros and cons to the table. Understanding the underlying motivations and preferences of each generation can help ensure that your interactions with and across generations is productive and beneficial. That your interactions with your child are productive and beneficial. that your interactions with your parents are productive and beneficial, that your interactions with your coworkers, your colleagues, your boss, your church members, all these people are productive and beneficial, that they are hot, honest, open, transactional, that if issues arise, we can deal with them effectively. And we can make sure that when we exchange ideas and information, we minimize any barriers or misunderstandings that may come up. Our talk series that will start next week focuses on the benefits, the challenges, and the strategies to conversing across generations. Next Tuesday, July 21st, we will have Gen Y and Gen Z, millennials and Gen Z in the house. The week after, Gen X and baby boomers. The week after, it's a generational mixing pot, because we interact with everybody. So we will have the boomers, the Gen X, the Gen Z, the Gen Y at the table to talk about benefits, challenges, and strategies to effective conversations, because we do need to nurture multi-generational collaboration. We do need to have conversations with our parents so we can learn from them. We do need to have conversations with our children because they too have something to give us. They too can teach us something. So we need effective communication strategies despite any differences that may come up in generation, perceptions, or norms. And when we do that, we will have strengthened relationships, conversations that build bridges, conversations that inform our tomorrow. If you would like to inform this conversation in terms of what questions I ask the panelists, there will be a Google form that will be attached to this video. Please respond to it. It shouldn't take you more than 90 seconds, depending on how fast you type. Be sure to like and subscribe Talks with E on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And start those conversations. Make them hot, honest, open, and two-way. No matter how uncomfortable you may be, it's better to go to your child and say, I feel like I don't communicate very well with you. I feel like I don't understand you. And child, be willing to go to your parent and say, I feel like you don't understand me, and I want to understand you better. And parent, if your child really comes to you and tells you that, do everything you can to not emotionally respond, but really listen, because ask yourself, is it worth losing a relationship with my child? Is it worth losing a relationship with my husband, with my spouse, with my friend, with my grandparent? What can I do to build that bridge of communication so that it is honest, open, and transactional, where we can exchange ideas, where we can laugh, where we can have conversations that heal? If I have hurt you, I open the space for you to come to me and tell me I have hurt you, and be willing to let me know how, because maybe it was not intentional. And if it was, allow ourselves to be open and honest and say, I was wrong. I hurt you in that moment. My intent was not to hurt you in that way, but I know that I did. Acknowledge the wrongdoing, whether you wanted it to happen or not. Because at the end of the day, we want to have conversations that push us to be the best version of ourselves. And if I'm dealing with baggage and emotional trauma because of a relationship with my parent or with my mother or with my sister or with my brother, with my uncle, with my aunt, that may break me and inhibit me from being who I truly am. Or maybe you have hurt somebody. You have been on the wrong side of the street. Allow yourself to have open and honest conversations where you go to that person. Is it difficult? Absolutely. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. But is it important? Absolutely. It is very important. So have conversations. Let us be bold and courageous to step out and shoot your shot. Have that conversation. Whether it's to tell somebody, I like you, you like me, we can do this, or whether it's to tell somebody, I've been wrong, or whether it's to tell somebody, I don't understand your experience as a black woman or as a white woman or as a white man or as an immigrant. What is it like? Every conversation starts with a hello. And what you do after that is up to you. But I challenge us to have honest, open, and two-way conversations that are hot. I hope to see you here next week. Tune in, subscribe, share this conversation, share this video with somebody, because no matter the setting, no matter the generation, no matter the person, we have to have hot conversation. Honest, open, two-way. Until next time, let's get those conversations started.